So where did the name Future Ancestors come from?
I'd rather, because she came up with the name first, so I'd rather her.
Well, it's kind of off of my book. I feel like, I've been on this journey of ancestry. So I figured, we're the future ancestors. And I've been on this tip for a while now. I'm like, I'm the tita, so I feel some type of responsibility to give back to our next generation. So
That's what's up.
All right, so we brought all of you guys here today just to have a forum, so to speak, of bringing people together from our community. Now, community means Filipino community. Community means the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, tri-state area. I feel like each one of you brings something to the table that represents this area.
the conversation is we want to talk about building community within the Filipino community. So do you guys feel like you have one? What does community mean to you? Like, do you feel supported by the Filipino community? Is it important for you to be supported by the Filipino community? Maybe it's not,
Anyone have any ideas, thoughts about that?
Because my upbringing might not be the same as everybody else's, but that never took away my love or the aspect of community within the Filipino community. As a musician, even more reason why I wanted support from my own people, to feel like maybe there's I can bring a voice that isn't necessarily spoken, that hasn't been heard yet, not because of just being Filipino, but being a Filipino that might not, also for other Filipinos who don't feel like they've been assimilated within their own community. For maybe Filipino-Americans who don't speak Tagalog or Visayan, there's so many sects that are untouched or situations that people are not familiar with, whether you grew up in a city or the suburbs. Most of the Filipinos I know, they weren't doing the same things I was, and then the ones that were also feel the same ways, but there hasn't been that collective voice because it's so different. I think the Philippines and Filipino people in our community are so diverse that it makes it more of a unique situation to try to bring us together, because we might not all do the same things or care about the same things, and that's okay. But there's always an underlying thing that we all do agree on, and when it comes to supporting one another, we hear it now, or at least I hear it. It's just like, if you have the support of the Filipino people and your own people, you're good. Like if I blew up in the Philippines, I might be okay. I could come home and never be known, but I'm okay because the Philippines got me. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, the idea is great, but in experience, it comes down to who really supports you or not. If I say, hey, buy this shirt, if you really, you really mess with me, then you'll buy the shirt, and then, it could be one or the other, but that becomes a whole nother thing, right? Support comes in so many ways. Free, monetary, or just pat on the back, or just recognition. It really depends what you define as what makes your community.
I grew up in a community that was familial, but also very Filipino. But also I had friends that were outside of the Filipino community. And then I kind of meandered in and out, I only really found my community again as an adult, where I felt I could take ownership of my own identity as Filipino, because I think when I was younger, I had this fear that if I identified overtly as Filipino, that's all I would be to people, and that would be I'd be like this one-note song that people would keep playing all the time. So I felt like I had to take on an identity that was larger than Filipino, like part of a larger diasporic thought. There's this concept of diasporic longing I've been hearing more about, like when you feel this longing or this existential desire to go back home or to feel connected to home when you're around stuff like this, right? So that's something that only started to kick in in my 30s, and I don't know what it was. It might have been I moved cross country, and I felt isolated for a little bit, or maybe it's because of just natural age and where you are in terms of life. But now community, I'm very adamant about building it, nurturing it, feeling the warmth of community, and that's something I've only started feeling now. I don't know if you all feel the same way.
yeah, no, I just started now too, so.
I grew up in Jersey City, where there is huge Filipino community. Like my grammar school, my high school was, I don't know, like 50-60% Filipino. And I never gave it a second thought. Like the Filipino community was always there. You know what I mean? Like even now, like into my 40s, it's the first community that I go to for support and that I know it is there. So I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to hear like other perspectives on it. Just growing up even in different parts of Jersey, you know what I mean? Like, and in Queens, because like I have lots of family in Queens, and you're right, the dynamic is a little bit different there. But yeah, in Jersey City, it's always been celebrated. The Filipino community there is vibrant. We've got Manila Avenue. In high school, I have I had Filipino teachers in high school. I don't know. So it was just like never a second thought. So I guess I'm kind of blessed in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, because I didn't have that at all. My family, I grew up in, my family lived in Newark.
Right.
So they were the only family. They were the only Filipinos that I knew.
Token Filipino.
And then after that, it was everyone else. Like,
Yeah.
and then also I didn't look Filipino. Everyone thought I was black and Japanese or Hawaiian, or I was everything. So it was really hard for me with identity. And that's kind of why I'm on this journey now, because I had to go back home. During the pandemic is where it happened for me.
Right.
That's when I started to unlearn all of the colonized mindset. I didn't even know that I was colonized, by the way. Then I started to unlearn. I was like, oh,
The more you know.
that's me. I'm like, I am completely colonized. That's terrible.
Yeah.
And then it's awesome though, because now I'm learning a lot, and now I do have a community, which is beautiful, because it's funny because even though I didn't have a community, I've always loved our people.
Yeah.
And anytime you see someone, it's always like, hey, you're Filipino, and you just, it's all love.
Well, I love that you just went like head first and so everything. Like you just went all out and was just like, I'm embracing the whole community and everything.
Yeah, I think it's like ancestral to me.
Yeah.
I think they're just like, go. And I was like, now? And I'm like, all right, let's go.
For sure.
I grew up in Flushing, but as someone who was biracial, I was always exploring my identity, and that's something that I've really embraced in college because I was really involved in my Filipino club. And then when I went back to New York City, I was just like, oh, I miss this. I miss this kind of tight-knit community. And that's why I really wanted to get more involved, and I wanted to support businesses, and I really do believe that representation matters. Like I ran for office back in 2021 and it was tough, but I think support is definitely needed, and I really embraced that support from the community. And I think as I evolve, or maybe as we evolve, like I can see where Jenny's coming from when it looks like something else over time, what community looks like. So that's something I'm still learning.
Hearing all of your stories, that's kind of I think the connection too, is like, the connection is we have a disconnect, you know?
Yeah.
And this is our therapy right here. This is therapy group 101 right here, because I like hearing all of your stories.
Yeah.
It's like, that's something I need to hear, because I feel like, is it just me? But we're around our people too. This is the weird thing. It's like, I know I'm gonna throw the Cali word into it because
Oh boy.
they have a lot of each other there, and they have their own struggles they have to deal with. But we're not as deep. So, like, having to see each other as maybe like adults and then talk. We should have had these conversations when we were younger. I believe we would be better off. And that's why future ancestors here are passing it on, so these kids know, hey, we don't have to wait till you're 20 or 30, you know what I mean? To like have these conversations.
Yeah, you can normalize
I
it.
think though the difference when you bring up like the Bay Area and like especially California, their history is super rich, especially in terms of like, you know, how like Filipinos immigrated there and stuff, and especially like I'm assuming with our parents immigrating like in the 70s or whatever, all they were worried about in the Northeast was acclimating, and they were worried about us like being like, don't be other, just get by, like, you know, don't stick out. So I think that was to their detriment, and, you know, not to point fingers, but like with our parents trying to make us seem like, okay, you know what, like just go get along what is it? Go along to get along or something. That's the terminology. We then forget about like our own history and like what is the passed down. And so now as adults, we're like, okay, we can't let this die. Like we have to do the extra effort to like pass it down. Right. So the fact of the matter is that we're recognizing where the disconnect is. Right. It's a matter of putting the work now to continue on and to make sure that there isn't another disconnect. Right.